All right, ladies and gentlemen, the tight ends are on the board. It's about time we got to the most, I would say, forgot about position in drafts. It's a position that probably a lot of people don't even like drafting because, man, this can get really messy really fast. Hammer, how do you feel about your tight ends?
It all depends on. Pause. No,
all right. So, how do you feel there about the TEs?
You know what? You're lucky enough to get one of these top five that are constantly putting in work week in and week out.
Mm-hmm.
Your team is going to look good throughout the season then.
Mm-hmm.
So let's roll it out and give these people what they want with our top tight ends.
Absolutely. And let's start off, Hammer. Who do you have as your number one tight end on the board?
My number one is I was back and forth, and I could probably still be back and forth after we do this tonight. But I'm going with Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. There's not much you can say about this dude. Like, he is a problem and has been a problem as long as he's been working with Pat Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
Last year he finished ranked number one in tight end in points, seventh in touchdowns with 5, first in receiving yards with 1,229. He is something special. The continued domination with him has been nothing short but amazing. He finished as tight end 1 in PPR every year for the last 4 years running. And with Pat Mahomes as his quarterback, Kelce could easily continue to do this as long as both of them stay healthy and are in the league together.
I agree. I have it the same. I wouldn't change anything about it. I know you were flip-flopping, but for me, I was sold. You know why? Because Pat Mahomes is that good. And
my homie.
I'm rolling with my homies. You know what I mean? And let's put it like this. Your boy Kittle, I'm not really trusting his quarterback and Jimmy G. Jimmy G's good, but he's not great. Jimmy G is okay. He's not Pat Mahomes.
He'd be great if he stopped doing photo shoots for Playgirl, but we'll save that for another day.
Like, yo, for real. He scores more off the field than he does on the field, you know?
That's not an insult. That's not an insult, Jimmy G. That's just a fact of life.
That's very, very true. But we're both even there. The only reason why I do have him above Kelce is just one, like I said, the quarterback. 2, if you look at the targets last year, we know he had 97 catches, but he had 136 targets. That was one of the most at the tight end position. He gets targeted like a wide receiver. I'm in love with Kelce, like still. And who do you have at 2? I mean, I think we pretty much know at this point.
I think we know who number 2 is. Number 2 is George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. Young stud. He's been in the league now for this is his 4th season.
Yeah.
Another one. We have it practically in the correct order in regards to last season. He finished second amongst tight ends in fantasy points. He finished 7th in touchdowns with 5, 3rd in receiving yards with 1,053. Another one that you said, Jimmy G is he's got to step up a little bit more, especially I know they made it to the Super Bowl last year, but they were unsuccessful against that high-powered offense with Kansas City. But he's firmly entrenched with Kelce as like they're the top 2 tier 1 options at tight end. And you're saying like, how do I feel about my tight ends? You have guys like this.
Pause.
Oh man, we gotta stop saying that. It just sounds weird. Kittle, he averaged just under 16 fantasy points and totaled 222.5 last year in fantasy points. And the year before that, he had a little bit over 16 with 258.7. Like, these are guys that are constantly consistent at their position, and they are, in my opinion, both quarterbacks number 1 targets. Kittle made up for just under 23% of the target distribution last year, and the numbers show for that too. So he's going to have another breakout year, especially with Deebo Samuel's out right now with a broken foot, and they said he's going to be out for months. Emmanuel Sanders is no longer there, and both of them made up for a combined of 28% of that offense.
Sure.
So only time's going to tell how this is going to look this year for George Kittle going
Now,
in.
here's my question about Kittle. And I'll first give a comment and then a question. My comment on Kittle is last year he had 107 targets and 85 catches. That's just insane. The guy only didn't catch 22 balls thrown his way. I think that's a dynamic player, if you ask me. He still put in 5 touchdowns, so he was right there with Travis Kelce in scoring. The only difference is he doesn't get the yards. Kelce put up, almost 1,250 yards. He put 1,229 yards. Kittle put up 1053. So they were right there. They had the same amount of touchdowns. He had 12 less receptions and, little about 200 yards less. That's the difference between the two of them. It's very slim. It's not that big of a difference. That's why you can flip-flop between the two of them. If Kelce comes off, you look at Kittle and you say, this is my last guy that's in this elite tier of, they could be like a wide receiver, but they play tight end. Okay. But then after that's when things start to get a little bit shaky. We're not on like, oh my God, gouge my eyes out when I'm taking this pick because I don't want to look. It's not that bad yet, but we're gonna get there, and we'll get there on this video. So, Who do you got at 3, Hammer? Who's number 3?
Number 3 is another tight end that I feel has been consistent as long as he's been in the league, and that's Zach Ertz of the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes. He did have a bit of a slide last year compared to his 2018 campaign in regards to fantasy points. 2018, he was averaging 17.5 points a game with 280.3 for the season. Last year, 14.4 on average with 215.5. He had 88 receptions, 135 targets, 916 yards, 6 touchdowns. It was hard for me to go with this, but like I said, he's another tight end that has been constantly consistent as long as he's been in the league. One thing you do take into consideration is his quarterback, Carson Wentz. Can he stay healthy for a full season? Or is he going to go down again, and then we're going to see Ertz's numbers dwindle? The main thing that we see with these top tight ends in our picks right now anyways, is the quarterbacks rely and depend on these tight ends. Whether it's a safety blanket or not, these guys outshine a lot of their receivers on each of their teams.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And just one more fact on Ertz that we have here at the 3rd spot is Ertz last year had 135 targets. When you look at that was only 1 behind Travis Kelce. He had 6 touchdowns. He had 1 more touchdown than Travis Kelce. He had a 2-point conversion. Of the tight ends that we talked about, he's the only one with the 2-point conversion. But the problem is he only caught 88 balls out of the 130 that he had, and he had less than 1,000 yards with 916. Like Hammer is saying, we don't know what's going to necessarily happen with Wentz. Wentz is a great quarterback, but he's a great quarterback when he's playing. If you're not playing, you're not a great quarterback. You're on the injured list. And that affects his players. That affects the team around him. And that's the only reason why I make a slight change from Hammer here. I'm going with the number 1 weapon for the most dynamic quarterback aside from Pat Mahomes, and that's Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews balled last year. This kid was putting up numbers. And when I look at a guy like that who scored 10 touchdowns, 10, he had as many touchdowns as Ertz and Kelce combined. He had as as Ertz and as Kittle and Kelce combined, the number 1 and 2 guys. That's why I have him at number 3. Yes, he had less catches than all of them at 64. So he didn't have the volume that these other guys had, but he's a dynamic player in the red zone. And with a guy like Jackson, with a high-powered offense like that, I like the safety blanket that I'm getting here. And if you compare him, Andrews had 24 less targets than Ertz, but he put up only like 60 less yards. So they're right there, and Andrews is able to do a lot with his targets, but that's who I have at 3. And then my question for you, Hammer, is who's at 4 for you?
4 is Mark Andrews, and like we said, with these dynamic quarterbacks that we have in the league right now in Jackson and Mahomes, these guys are their number 1 targets.
Yep.
He finished the season as ranked 5th amongst the tight ends, catching 64 and 98 targets, which ranked 5th and 7th respectively. 852 yards were 5th amongst tight ends, while his 10 touchdowns were 1st. He's another special talent that is going to continue to perform with the quarterback as dynamic as Lamar Jackson.
And that's the only reason why I did have him above Ertz, because at number 4, I have Ertz. Ertz is right there. It's like, this is another situation where it's like, if you're looking at Kittle and Kelce, I think it's clear cut. If you don't have one, you take the other, and you can have preferences on who you take between the two of them. And then once you get down to 3 and 4, I think it's pretty clear cut. You're between Andrews and you're between Ertz. There's really not many other options. I feel like at this point of the draft, for me, there's a solid 5. I have Ertz at 4. I would like them to start touching on 5 because it's the only other guy I feel comfortable about drafting. After this, it's nothing but upside and speculation at tight end. I am being real. I am sounding the horn. I am letting you know, if you don't have some of these top tight ends, once you get past 10, it's scary. Top 5 is where you're going to feel more comfortable. Me and Hammer both have the same guy at 5. I'm going to let him touch on him because, he has that familiarity with this guy.
Raider Nation, stand up. Darren Waller of the Las Vegas Raiders at number 5. This kid's story, from drug abuse to being out of the league, to being suspended, to redeeming himself, to getting a new contract, to being the number 1 receiver / tight end for the Raiders last year. This kid was ridiculous. I got so hyped every time I watched him touch the ball. He was just something special. Last year, 90 receptions, 117 targets, 1,145 yards, 3 touchdowns. His longest was 75 yards, 13.8 fantasy points a game, 221 fantasy points overall. We're looking at an offense going into the season, per new offensive coordinator Greg Olson, that they are going to be running a 3 tight end offense. We also signed veteran tight end Jason Witten. We drafted Henry Ruggs. We have a whole bunch of weapons on offense now. Derek Carr needs to step up and prove that he's worth the money that he's getting right now. This kid's volume last year was amazing. If he continues to do what he did last season, I'm putting it down here, and I've been putting it down since the draft. The Las Vegas Raiders are going to be a 10-6, 11-5 team this coming season. Mark my words.
And I'm not going to lie to you. Darren Waller last year was someone that I snagged in the back half of a lot of my drafts or picked him off the waiver wire, and he was money for me. I traded him in one league in order to get Aaron Jones, which ended up being a league winner for me. And in another league, I traded Zach Ertz because I had Waller and I felt secure with him being my number 1 tight end. So a Waller all around, I had him everywhere. The thing that I love about Waller, like Hammer was saying, he had an insane number of targets. He was the 3rd highest targeted tight end last year. So that gives you a sense of, hey, this guy is used in the offense. He's a reliable target. And guess what? Carr looks for him. And that's what you look for in a pick. That's what you look for in a tight end. And as the 5th tight end, you can't go wrong here. I'm liking it. This is, though, the end of my secure zone. After this, now we start talking about some question marks. After this, we talk about a couple of what ifs. After this, we talk about some guys that they can, but they can't. And who do you have as the first after this guy? Who's your number?
I am glitching over here, but I think I got it. My number 6 is Hayden Hurst of the Atlanta Falcons. With Austin Hooper gone to Cleveland, it's time for this dude to step up. They do have a new high-powered offense in regards to the addition of Todd Gurley. You also have Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones, and we can't forget about Matt Ryan, who's been there more or less since the age of the flood. Last year, he played 16 games. He only started 4, 30 receptions, 39 targets, 349 yards with 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. He ranked No, that can't be right. It's saying second in touchdowns amongst tight ends, which that's definitely not true. But this is going to be pretty much his show and prove year because he is going to be the sole starting tight end for them right now. We just have to see how this offense turns out this coming season. Like I said, he's Matt Ryan has plenty of weapons, and if you're one of these top tier quarterbacks, which I think Matt Ryan you can still put him in as a top tier or just a starting quarterback. He could definitely benefit with having Hayden Hurst as a security blanket for him going into this year.
Mm-hmm. And one thing about Matt Ryan that we know is he likes to target the tight end. There from Tony Gonzalez to last year Austin Hooper, he finds a way to get his tight end involved and get them scoring. Last year, Austin Hooper scored the fourth amount of touchdowns from the wide receiver from the tight end position, and Austin Hooper finished last year as a number 6 option at tight end for points scored. So it lends you to believe that if Hayden Hurst can put up a similar season to what Austin Hooper did last year, you're going to look at a great return on investment and a guy that can really give you some value over here. But for me, I'm going with a different player at 6. He's a little bit injury prone, and that's a risk behind him. Otherwise, he has the potential to be higher. The reason why I do take him here, though, is because I do just believe in so much of his potential and his talent. He plays like a wide receiver, but he is a tight end, and that's Engram over here with the Giants. This kid has all the tools in the tool bag in order to be an elite tight end. The only problem with him is he can't stay on the field. More often than not, he's either hurt, out, or something's wrong. And that hurts your chances of being a great fantasy player if you can't be on the field long enough to put up numbers. But if he is healthy and everything is going, I do like me some Evan Engram, definitely. But who you rocking with at 7? Who you got after this?
Fresh out of retirement and into the fire, we got Rob Gronkowski of the now Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He comes out of retirement to reunite with his quarterback Tom Brady in Tampa. When it comes to Gronk and his new offense, he projects to finish as the 3rd target behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, which we had already talked about before. His impact would be felt most when it comes to touchdowns in the red zone, just like he has throughout his career. Every season that Gronk has played more than 8 games, he has scored at least 8 receiving touchdowns, except for 2018 when he only scored 3 in an injured-plagued season. His last season that he played was 2018. He had 47 receptions on 72 targets, 682 yards, 3 touchdowns, 10 fantasy points a game at 131.2 for the season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely, Gronk to me is the biggest question. Gronk to me is like, what's going to happen in that offense? We're talking about Evans and Godwin as being top options at wide receiver. They're, 2 of the top target share guys. You're looking at a guy like Ronald Jones. We're expecting to get a decent workload at running back.
LaShawn McCoy as well.
Yeah, what does that leave for Gronk? That's what, and then you still have OJ Howard there. You have Humphreys. They have so many weapons, over there. Cameron Brate, that I just don't know what's gonna happen. It's so many questions.
It's gonna be red zone targets. It's really not gonna be questions. He's gonna be a red zone target like he has been for Brady throughout his career.
If you're only getting touchdowns, doesn't that really limit your upside? That's where, because especially in PPR where you're getting 1 point per catch, I like a guy that's going to get some touches with the upside of touchdowns. And that's why instead of going with the guy like Gronk at 7, I went with the guy that we all know and love over here in LA. That's Higbee. Higbee really came on that second half of the year when we started seeing McVay go with 2 tight end sets. They were really running a lot more of the offense. And featuring him in it. When Higbee was coming up, that's when we saw Cooper Kupp come down. And I think this is a little bit of the situation where you're not 100% sure what's going to go on with the target share, who they're going to feature. They still have Everson Griffin as a tight end there, or I forgot his name, but Everett, I believe it was his last name. But they have another tight end there. And it's not a clear-cut situation. Last year, Higbee was the number 2 tight end, and he worked his way up to the number 1. but they did give him a contract. I know they believe in him. Cooper Kupp is currently, they haven't begun negotiations, so it's an interesting situation. But I think that Higbee has the potential to be someone that gets a lot of catches, scores a lot of points. Last year, when you look at his scoring, Higbee finished as the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He was the number 8 tight end scoring last year, and that was with him only really playing half the season and getting that target share. So I think he has a lot of upside going forward. But who do you now have at 8?
Number 8, I have Evan Engram of the New York Giants, and you touched on it before. He missed the final 8 games last year with the foot injury, and injuries have been his biggest concern. He has yet to complete a full 16-game season, but when he has played, he's finished 4th, 7th, and 7th in terms of fantasy points per game since being drafted in 2017. Now, you have to look at it from this standpoint. Who is the Giants' new offensive coordinator?
Oh, we know who that is. That's the old coach from Dallas, Jason Garrett.
What did Jason Garrett do for Jason Witten's career as a tight end with that offense?
He featured that tight end.
And that's exactly what the Giants will do this coming season with Evan Engram. And I'm telling you now, yes, I have him at 8. As long as the kid stays healthy, Jason Garrett is going to utilize him in any way, shape, or form, and that kid's going to put up some numbers this year.
Yep. And my thing is, if he does what you're saying, he stays healthy, and he works with Jason Garrett, I do think that you'd be looking at him and Waller as two of those guys that'll be really close to each other, putting up similar numbers. And they'll probably be closer to the Ertz range, and the Andrews range than we would like to think, because guess what? These guys are dynamic playmakers, but can they stay healthy? That's the biggest question with Engram. Can you stay healthy? So that was your number 8, and my number 8 was your number 6, and that's Hayden Hurst. I see a lot of places they have him going a lot lower. They're hiring a lot of other more established guys, but the Baltimore Ravens traded Hayden Hurst, who was the top pick at tight end for them, over to Atlanta after they lost Hooper. Now, what that means to me is, if a team is saying, hey, we need to solve an option at tight end now that we've lost Hooper, and you could just sign Hooper. They could have just given Hooper the money, kept him, but they decide, no, we'll let you walk because you're not worth the money, and then they go recruit a young kid who is coming off a high draft pick from a team that has a lot of tight ends. That just leads me to believe, one, he didn't get the opportunity to shine there because Mark Andrews really played up, and they really believe in Mark Andrews. And 2, people around the league seen the tape on this kid, and they think that he could be good, that you would go after a guy that isn't the starter but was a high pick that you think could be good. And I think that's the thing about Hayden Hurst that I love, is that he had that high pick potential. He was a first rounder. He was loved by a team in Baltimore who's great with their tight ends, and he's being traded to an Atlanta team. That just, to me, just gives me all sorts of green signals. I saw Ryan talking that he's one of the best athletes that he's ever played with at the tight end position, and it's the guy that played with Tony Gonzalez. So, I'm very high on Hayden Hurst this year. He could definitely, outproduce Evan Engram and Higbee if he stays healthy and he does similar to what Hooper was doing last time. But it is a little bit of a question mark just because, they don't have the time together that some of these other guys do. But that's 8. And now we're going to 9. And as we get deeper and deeper, it gets stickier and stickier. And it's like, these are places that we just don't want to be. But now we're talking about the 9th tight end. And who do you got?
9th tight end, I have Tyler Higbee of the LA Rams. You had touched on him before. And it's worth noting that before he broke out last year, Gerald Everett started to emerge himself. But he finished poorly due to injury, and they both commanded like the same rate at 14.5% in regards to targets. But Higbee slightly edged him out in overall target share. Like, at the end of the day, it could be Higbee's job to lose this coming season, but there could come a risk because their coaching staff could also decide to get Everett more involved, which would hurt Higbee's fantasy ceiling this coming season.
Yep, and I agree with everything that you're saying there, and that's the reason why Higbee isn't over some of the other guys, even though he did have that great finish last year, only based off a strong second half. I would say the only thing that I do like about Higbee that leads me to feel a little more certain is that I know that he has a contract going past this year, and Everett is on the last year of his rookie year and rookie deal, and they haven't done anything yet. So it just leads me to think that maybe the future's with this kid, but again, it's a wait and see thing. You got to see what happens. This is again why tight ends are sticky. And for me, who I have at this pick right here at 9, I'm going with the young guy who is also a first round pick. His quarterback is someone that I like his upside, and that's Noah Fant over there in Denver. I think Drew Lock has some a pretty good chance to be a decent quarterback. He has a strong arm. He seems like he isn't fearful in the pocket. He makes the big play, even if he knows there's a chance to make a mistake. And with the player like Noah Fant, who's a big tight end that can go out there and get it, who can score some points, who has some great measurables, I think that's a position where I want to take the upside and see what's going to happen. And I'm going to roll with Noah Fant. That's who I got at 9. But now we get to the final 5 or final 6, I should say. And at 10, who are you rolling with?
Rolling with tight end number 2 from the Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Goedert. He's one of the rare tight ends that offers fantasy value as a number 2 tight end. And he ranked 10th in receiving yards with 607 and finished last year as a tight end 1 despite playing in a tandem with Zach Ertz. No team in the league right now runs more 2 tight end sets than the Eagles. Maybe they took that out of the Bill Belichick playbook from a couple of years ago. But Goedert in 2020 should be viewed as a starting tight end because he's still going to see close to a 70% snap share. So for somebody that was 58 receptions out of 87 targets for 670 yards, 5 touchdowns, he averaged just under 10 a game, 144.7 fantasy points overall. I'm looking at him to have a slight incline this coming season, regardless of having Zach Ertz as his number 1 in front of him.
Yeah, and I'll say this: it's really getting to the point where it's like you just don't know what to do. So I can understand going with a tight end 2 there, but you really think that a second tight end on a team like the Eagles, who will admit they're weak at wide receiver, they don't have that many like bona fide options at wide receiver. Do you really think a tight end 2 would be a week in, week out starter for you on your team over some other guys who may not have the quarterback or the situation, but they're the clear cut number 1
with the system that they run? As long as that system is consistent week in, week out, because they do have a lack in the receivers, yeah, it's going to work. And he should continue to get that same distribution and put up those same numbers. Mm-hmm. There will be a share for the ball between the 2 of them at tight end, but I guarantee that you're going to see the same numbers probably a little bit better than he had last season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Goddard's talent speaks for itself. He's a really talented player. I'm definitely into him. Just a little bit worried about his target share. For me, though, who I have at 10 is the wide receiver, the tight end out of San Diego, Hunter Henry. He doesn't have Philly.
Where?
Sorry, L.A. That's a switch up too.
That's been like 2-3 years already, bro.
I'm still used to the powder blues. Whenever you see powder blue, I think San Diego. Oh, those are the best jerseys in the NFL. The powder blue electric Chargers uniforms are the best jerseys probably.
You know what? It doesn't matter where their home games are. Anytime they play the Raiders, we pack out that stadium.
That's true. That's true. That's true. But the real question is going to be, can you beat them this year? Yes. And I think that's going to be something that we're going to look forward to, because I think San Diego is going to be trash. But they have a lot of players on defense, so they can be. They're a weird team. They have a lot of upside, but I think they're going to be trash because their quarterback is going to be trash.
Didn't Joey Bosa just get paid 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Joey
Bosa is a problem.
There's a solid defensive player right there.
Yeah, they have a great core on defense, and I think that's the reason why they have a shot to be relevant. But on offense, it's a shit show. But I think that's why Hunter Henry has a shot to be somewhat decent because, whether you're running a rookie quarterback in Herbert or you're running the Taylor at quarterback, they're going to be looking to the tight end. They're going to be looking for dump offs. I don't like these guys to be airing it out, throwing downfield, or being dominant in that aspect. I like them to more be dump off guys, secure checkdowns, and that could mean some good catches for Henry. That's why I have Henry at 10. And I think you have Henry at 11, if I'm correct.
I do have Henry at 11, and reason being, like, he showed why he is like one of the more talented tight ends in the league, but he's another one. Health concerns, man. He has not played a full season in the 4 years he's been in the league. So there's significant concerns for him heading into this season. There's a chance that Taylor could lean on his tight end. Mm-hmm. In the 2 seasons that Taylor had in Buffalo, he did help Charles Clay accumulate over 1,000 yards and 100-yard receptions. So Taylor could be the answer if he's starting for the time being, but also Hunter Henry's health is the major concern. So this is a bit of a risk right now if you're drafting him. It's something you definitely need to consider going into this season, because you also have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen on the offense as well, and they make up a lot of that offense as well.
And then you have Austin Eckler, who gets a lot of catches out of the backfield.
Oh yes.
So it's a dicey situation. Like we were saying, or like I've been harping, it gets ugly fast. Like right now, you're talking about the number 10 or 11 tight end, depending on where you have it. In most leagues, that's a guaranteed starter, and this guy's never finished a year. You know what that means? Ay caramba. You start getting ready for some waiver wire picks, get ready for drafting a backup, get ready for consistently monitoring it and maybe playing some matchups. That's what I'm saying if you're drafting a tight end here. This is scary this year on tight end. Tight end right now, I think it's making it more valuable in some of these early rounds. When you're looking at a wide receiver or a tight end, if you're close, tight end. But right now, my number 11 guy is the guy that Hammer was bringing up, I want to say, like, at 7. So it's about, 4 picks later than him. And the only reason why I have him 4 picks later is because, like I was saying, I'm just very uncertain about what the situation is going to be like. When Gronk plays, he's a beast. His last year, though, he was a little bit down. I think having a year off to heal will make him, potentially better. But I don't know the situation. It's scary. I can see him. I can see me taking, Gronk over. I would say probably the highest I would take him would be 9 over Fant and Hunter. But he's really in this back range for me just because it's so uncertain. I just don't know, and that's why I feel that way. But now let's just keep moving at 12. Who you got?
We got Mike Gesicki from the Miami Dolphins. 3rd-year breakout for him is in the cards this season. Was 2nd in the team last year in targets, receptions, and receiving yards. He should see more targets in 2020 with Devontae Parker being the only healthy established receiver coming back. He was also deployed as the Dolphins' main slot receiver as well at times, and the trend looks to be the plan this season as well. They're probably going to split him out to the slot position. This will help get free releases off the line of scrimmage and allow him to use his athletic profile to create yards after catch with the ball in his hands. We just got to see.
Yeah, and he did his thing in the red zone. He had five touchdowns. He had 89 targets and 51 receptions for 570 yards last year. Mike Gesicki did finish last year in the top. Let's see. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He finished his wide receiver tight end number 11 last year. He finished with 110 points. Just for reference, Travis Kelce had 205. So you're starting to see this big drop off. Now with Gesicki, I'm a little bit worried because they do have a new offensive coordinator. And traditionally, I believe they got Greg Roman as their offensive coordinator. And traditionally, he's not a big tight end guy. And most tight ends underneath him haven't really succeeded. So I'm not 100% sure what's going to go on there. So it's another situation where there's so many unknowns that I'm kind of sticking away from it. And in this case, I'm going to lean a little bit more on Austin Hooper just because I've seen him put up some really good numbers last year. Again, he finished as the number 6 tight end. He just got traded to Cleveland. If you're going to trade for a player like that, you're not going to trade for him and sit him. You're going to play him. So I'm expecting him to get some decent targets. I'm hoping that the game plan for him. And at this point, we're throwing darts on the board. So, I'll take him with that shot or that upside, Austin Hooper. But who you rocking with the 13?
Number 13, I got another former Raider, Jared Cook of the New Orleans Saints. He's going into his second year with the Saints after signing that contract. He started off the season very poorly without having Drew Brees under center due to injury. But after returning from the injury between weeks 10 and 17, he had a touchdown or at least 50 receiving yards in every single game. He caught 7 of his 9 touchdowns during the stretch on just 28 receptions. His touchdown mark was a career high. Look to see Jared Cook increase his numbers this coming season as long as Brees is behind center weeks 1 through 16. I'll tell you right now.
Here's my question.
Go ahead.
You said what were the weeks in which that he blew up?
10 through 17.
So in 7 weeks, he scored most of his output. Like I want to say like 90% of his output, right?
Yeah.
And here's the beautiful part about everything that we're saying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He finished the number 7 tight end last year, and he did his scoring in 7 weeks. Yep. Think about that. For 10 weeks, he was trash, and he was good in 7 weeks, and he was a number 7 tight end last year of everyone for the whole season.
But this is a buyer beware issue as well, because you still have Alvin Kamara, who had probably his worst year last year.
He had a knee injury, apparently.
He's gonna have an upside this year. You still have Michael Thomas, the number 1 receiver in fantasy football, and you also have the addition of Emmanuel Sanders as well. So he might see the ball a little bit less, but then again, he might not. It all depends on position on the field and what he can do when the ball's in his hands.
Absolutely, and just for reference, I don't have him in my top 15 because of everything Amber's saying. And when you look at it, he had 43 catches last year and 9 touchdowns. Like, what? You did all your scoring in 7 weeks and you had 43 catches, 9 touchdowns? What are the odds you're going to replicate that level of touchdowns again? Very slim, if you ask me, especially if Kamara starts getting those touchdowns like we expect him to. I think that's where I might see some regression here. But at this low point in the draft, can you go wrong?
He's looking closer to being like a 10 to 12 ranked tight end by season's end. Just because of
the touchdown upside.
Because of the touchdown upside and just because of the other weapons that New Orleans has right now.
See, they didn't have Sanders last year, and that pulls me back even more from him because I'm like, I think Sanders is a great player. Like Sanders is a good player. So I just the ceiling there just isn't high enough for me, in my opinion. But again, we're gonna see what happens at this late. You really can't go wrong. So at 13 for me though, I'm going with Jack Doyle. Similar situation. Doyle is always hurt. Doyle sometimes doesn't put up the best numbers. He put up similar catches to Cook. They both had 43. He had a lot less yards and a lot less touchdowns. But the thing about Doyle that I do like, Phillip Rivers is now the quarterback with the Colts. And one thing that Phillip Rivers does, he uses his tight end. From Antonio Gates to Hunter Henry, my man uses his tight end. And if I'm going this slate, I'm throwing shots at the board. This is one that I take just because I know the familiarity that Rivers has and that rapport that he has with that position. And I would feel a little bit safe with a guy like Doyle this year. And then, I'm obviously, if he's my number 1 tight end, I'm getting another tight end, and I'm watching to see and playing matchups. But let's round it out. Who do you have at 14 and 15, the last 2 guys?
14, I got Noah Fant of the Denver Broncos. You had him a little higher.
Yep.
Mark Andrews is the only other tight end since 95 to reach at least 552 receiving yards, 50 targets, and 14 yards per reception in his rookie year. This kid's going into his second year and put up some serious numbers with 40 receptions, 66 targets, 562 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was only averaging 6.9 points a game with 111 points overall for the season. The Broncos added a lot of offensive pieces to the offense during the offseason and in the draft. but it remains to be seen if Fant will take that next step to command targets from Locke. In the last 5 games of the season with Locke starting, Fant averaged just under 3 targets per game. It's hard to tell performance-wise what he's going to do. Like the target distribution last year, he made up for 12.5 of the offense. And again, Emmanuel Sanders ain't there anymore. So that frees up space. But they also did draft
Judy.
Yes, Jerry Jeudy. I keep forgetting it was that was who they got. So it's hard to determine what's going to happen because they also have Melvin Gordon in the backfield as well, who's probably going to be splitting snaps with Phillip Lindsay.
And you still got Cortland Sutton, who is getting command a decent target share from Drew Lock. His talent just dictates that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Fant. I have a little bit higher 9 because of all those measurables that Hammer was talking about. Because let's face it, when I'm looking at some of these other guys, it's all sticky situations. So I'm playing with talent. I think Drew Lock's going to have some big upside. I think Drew Lock could be pretty good this year. I think the AFC West is going to be a tough division. I think it's going to be a lot harder than some of these Raider fans are thinking. That's pretty something that I'm going to be looking at. But the last 2 guys that I have is going to be TJ Hockenson from the Lions, who is another former first-round pick, drafted really high, has a lot of talent, love his upside. When Stafford was with him, they put up some good numbers. We know Stafford got hurt at the end of last year. But that's why I'm going with a guy like Hockenson there. Again, I like my upside guys. I like my young guys. I like guys that have potential to blow up. And that's why I went Hockenson 14 and 15. Dallas Goedert, I mean, we touched on it earlier. He gets a pretty good percentage of the target share, especially for a tight end too. He's unlike a lot of the other tight ends here. If Ertz goes down immediately, I would probably put him right where Ertz is now, or maybe right under Waller. Where if Ertz goes down, where do you rank Goedert?
Probably slightly above Waller.
Yeah, I agree. Just the way that offense runs, like you said, the system seems to favor the tight end. And when you're looking at these positions and these players, system plays a big part of it. But I'm really hyped. I mean, I think the tight ends this year are really, really trash. I'm pushing for a top 5 tight end this year. What about you, Hammer? How you feeling? Do you think you can wait and take some of these later guys? You want to go early? What's your theory on tight end this year?
I can still go late. Definitely still go late. Like
how late would you go with feeling comfortable?
Well, you know what? I'm saying going late when it comes to tight ends, but if you feel like already early in the draft, like there's not like legit guys that you have for availability, and you see that maybe Kelce or Kittle or Ertz or Waller is on the board, snatch them up. Now, those anybody outside of that top 5, then yeah, you're gonna wait until after you get all your other pieces put together.
Now, here's my question: how low are you willing to wait on tight end? Like, what's the last tight end before you go, nah, I can't do this. I have to take this guy now because I don't trust anyone else.
I'll probably say 7th, 8th, or 9th round.
So Gronk is your last guy. Like because you have Waller at 5, you have Hayden Hurst at 6, you have Gronk at 7, Engram at 8, Higbee at 9, Goedert at 10.
Actually, I would go as far as where I have Engram, and that was what, 8?
Yeah, 8.
Yeah, that's it.
So you think after 8, you're gonna make sure you get that tight end because after that you don't like it.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree. I think 8 is a good number. Same for me. I have Higbee a little bit higher, so he's at 7 for me. I have Engram at 6, Hurst at 8. Fant is probably the last guy that I'm looking at, but he's a sticky situation because I don't really know what's going to happen there. Hurst, I kind of have a little bit more of a feeling that Matt Ryan's going to play to his tight end, so I feel a little bit more confident there. But right there for me, I'm looking at my 8 and 9 as well. I don't really want shares of Hunter Henry, Gronk, Cooper, Doyle, Hockenson. Hockenson is probably if I'm after 9, I would probably wait on Hunter, wait on Gronk, wait on Hooper, wait on Doyle, take a TJ, take a Goedert, take both of them, and just play some matchups. But that'll be a more of a weekly thing where we're breaking down what's actually going down between the matchups, between how teams play the tight end, because I think that spot starting a tight end is not a bad strategy. How do you feel about spot starting tight ends?
Spot starting tight ends?
Yep. Because they're so bad. They don't score many points.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I was just looking, whose numbers was it? I was just looking at that. I'm just like, I don't get why he's like a legit, why he's somebody that's even remotely considered as like one of the best in Austin Hooper, which probably sounds really messed up, but like, dude finished 6th last year in fantasy points to tight ends. I have him at 15 as 15. Yep. But dude's numbers are like average. I'm looking at 20 as far back as 2016, 3.2 a game, 4.5 a game, just under 6 a game. Last year, 9 a game. And like, is he gonna be somebody that's gonna turn heads in Cleveland now? Like, is this what you guys really traded for? Like,
and then you got Juju, not Juju, but Landry, and then you got OBJ, and then you still got
Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and
how many mouths can get fed?
Joku wants out of there anyways. They need to make a move on that ASAP and get him out of there if that's the case. You guys traded for Hooper, which I don't get. Like I said, look at those numbers. I don't understand that. So
I would have rolled with Njoku, saved the pick or save the cap and get something else that would have helped my team out. Because I mean, do you really think Hooper is that much better than Njoku?
No.
I think Njoku got the short end of the stick because he has talent. The kid can play. Yeah. He's dynamic. So I mean, honestly, I'm just Cleveland. They're a shit show forever and always. It seems like they're the Knicks of the Midwest.
Damn.
But yeah, guys, that was our top 15 tight ends. This was man, this was a struggle. I'm looking at the second half of these tight. Like the more I'm looking at the tight ends, the more it shows the value of Kelce and Kittle. The question is, how high are you willing to go for them? And that's, I feel like, going to be a debate that we're going to have, and we're going to host it here for you. We appreciate you guys spending your time with us and following along. And if you guys have any input, any comments, any questions about our lists, feel free to mention in the comments. We respond back to everyone. We love to interact with the fans. Hammer, do you have anything for everyone as we get ready to sign off here today?
Just keep sharing, guys. Keep sharing. Thank you guys for viewing. And wash your hands and your asses.
For sure. Again, we want to thank everyone for all the support, all the love, all the shares, all the likes, all the comments. We're looking forward to getting you guys more content and helping you win your leagues, because that's what this is all about. So you guys have a wonderful night. And like Hammer said, stay washed.